What we are going to cover today on today's webinar on allergens has been a hot topic in the food service industry for some time now, and it will continue to be as policies continue to change and customers demand more from your establishment. On this slide, you see an overview of what we'll be covering today: food allergy basics, food allergen laws in your area, and the top 5 things you need to know to serve food safer today. By registering for this webinar, you will receive a free sample of brand new reformulated Knorr products and a chance to win a free consultation with Betsy's team and a UFS chef. So as you watch and learn during today's session, make sure you stay with us until the end, where we will reveal your free sample offer from Knorr, which is coming your way, as well as announce the winner of the free consultation. So don't miss out. Nutrition is one of the key pillars within our Unilever Sustainable Nutrition Strategy. Within our strategy, we have identified focus areas for Unilever Food Solutions: promote more plant-based diets, champion nutritious cooking, and leverage products that meet our highest nutrition standards to offer solutions in the kitchen. First off, it tastes good. For chefs, taste comes above everything else. Our products help deliver that great taste with solutions for different chefs and operators in different channels. Does good. Chefs and operators are very much into topics such as what we're discussing today, allergens. And it doesn't cost the earth. Food waste and packaging waste, as well as sustainable sourced ingredients, are all important to Unilever Food Solutions and our customers. So let's get started. Who has a food allergy? Well, according to the Food Allergy Research and Education, or known as FARE, about 1 in 25 Americans report that they suffer from a food allergy. 3 million with celiac disease. Celiac disease is an autoimmune reaction to the wheat protein gluten, resulting in irritation and inflammation in the intestine and malabsorption of nutrients. It's not an allergic reaction, and about 1% of the population has been diagnosed with celiac disease. However, 7.5% of the population have a food intolerance. Now, there is a gluten intolerance or sensitivity, which is not true celiac disease, and that's where the intestinal wall is not damaged, but similar symptoms to celiac disease, such as bloating, cramping, and diarrhea, and 10% of the population has this. This also impacts children. As you can see, about 30% of children with food allergies are allergic to more than one food. But we know currently 2 in 10 diners request a special meal. However, food allergies can be serious and need to be treated differently than dietary preferences and customized requests. So defining a food allergy, well, it's the body's immune system defense protects against foreign invaders. And with the food allergy, it's a hypersensitive reaction of the immune system that responds against a harmless substance, more specifically a food protein. Allergic symptoms can affect the respiratory system, the gastrointestinal tract, the skin, and or your cardiovascular system. Now, we know food allergies are on the rise. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports that the prevalence of food allergies in children increased by 50% between 1997 and 2011. And between 1997 and 2008, the prevalence of peanut or tree nut allergy appears to have more than tripled in U.S. children. Food allergies can result in mild or severe allergic reactions, as noted on this slide. They can be serious and they can be life-threatening. Every 3 minutes, a food allergy reaction sends someone to the emergency room. And each year in the U.S., 200,000 people require emergency medical care for allergic reactions to food. So this is a real issue here in the United States. Here are some symptoms of food allergies. As noted, there are mild or severe symptoms with the possibility of even needing epinephrine. So you can see listed here what's on the left is the mild reactions or symptoms, and then the severe. And if any of the severe symptoms or more than one mild symptom is present, you need to administer epinephrine immediately. Now, it's important to note there's no cure for a food allergy. They have to be managed by avoiding the problem, which in this case is the foods that we're consuming that cause the allergic reaction. and learning to recognize and treat those symptoms. Any of these symptoms can appear within a second or minutes. So this list also is not exhaustive, but it gives you a sense of the symptoms that can result from being exposed. So here on this slide, we're actually discussing anaphylaxis and how to respond to that in case someone in your restaurant goes into this reaction. And how do you respond? Well, first off, call 911. Next would be to check their breathing, listen for very hoarse or whispered voice or a coarse sound when the person is breathing in air. Start CPR if necessary. Be calm and reassure the person. And if the person has an emergency allergy medication on hand, help the person take or inject that medication. Avoid oral medication if the person is having difficulty breathing. Take steps to prevent shock. Have the person lie flat, raise the person's feet about 12 inches, and cover him or her with a coat or blanket. These are the things you should be doing. It's important also to note, though, what you should not do. So do not assume that any allergy shots the person has already received will provide complete protection. Do not place a pillow under the person's head if he or she is having trouble breathing. This can block the airway. And do not give the person anything by mouth if the person is having trouble breathing. So on this slide, we note what are the big 8 allergens here in the United States. Many, many different foods have been documented to produce reactions. And the big 8 are responsible for 90% of all food allergic reactions here in the United States. So as you see noted, soy, eggs, milk, fish, wheat, shellfish, tree nuts, and peanuts. So I'd like to highlight a few key points for each of these. Soybean allergy is one of the most common or more common food allergies, especially among babies and children. Problematic because of the abundance of soy-containing products. An egg allergy is estimated to affect approximately 1.5% of young children. And keep in mind, a lactose intolerance is not a milk allergy, in case someone notes that to you in your restaurant. With regards to seafood, an estimated 2.3% of Americans, or over 7 million people, report an allergy to seafood. It is generally recommended that those individuals who are allergic to one of these species of fish avoid all fish altogether unless they've been tested. With regards to wheat, gluten intolerance and celiac disease are not just a wheat allergy. People who are allergic to wheat have an immune response to wheat protein and may tolerate other grains. With regards to shellfish, shrimp, crab, and lobster cause most shellfish allergies. Allergic reactions to tree nuts are anaphylactic reactions and are among the leading causes of fatal and near-fatal reactions to foods. Tree nuts include, but are not limited to, walnuts, almonds, hazelnuts, cashews, pistachios, and Brazil nuts. This is not similar to a peanut allergy, as peanuts are legumes. And speaking of peanut allergies, this is the most common of the food allergies. The reactions can be severe anaphylaxis and varies depending on sensitivity and quantity consumed. Peanut allergy's most common cause of fatal food anaphylaxis that has been ranged between 50 and 62%. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to Betsy, and she's going to cover more of the policy-related issues.
Thank you, Joy, and thank you for that great education and just setting the baseline on food allergies here in the United States. I think that's super helpful, and welcome to everybody that did join us today. I'm going to jump into a section that I refer to as state by state, because I want to go through literally state by state and share with you what the current food allergy laws are as of today, September 26th, 2018. They are changing and ever-changing, and I will get into that. So first, let's take a look at the state of Massachusetts. I like to refer to Massachusetts as ground zero on food allergy laws, mainly because it was the first place that we as a country saw food allergy mandates step in our food safety world. There are 4 different parts to the Food Awareness Allergy Act of 2009, And I do know there's only 3 bullets on the slide. However, that's because the 4th part has not been enacted yet. I'll get there and share it with you absolutely no problem. The first point in Massachusetts is that restaurant managers must take a 22-minute video online and check the box at the end and say they watched the video. So that is the first piece of the Massachusetts awareness. The second piece is, as you can see here, disclaimer language needs to be posted, and that's the disclaimer language the state of Massachusetts does mandate that is in all food establishments. Before placing your order, please inform your server if a person in your party has a food allergy. Disclosing that you have a food allergy in a food service establishment puts some of the onus on the consumer, that they let you know that, to the best of their knowledge, that they have a food allergy. It's quite important that you at least be informed up front so that you might be able to help them. The third area in the state of Massachusetts that's mandated is that there be a food allergy poster in the kitchen or break room of a facility. And I make a little circles around here on the food allergy posters. The poster on the left was the original poster that was done by FAN, which stood for Food Allergy Anaphylactic Network. It's the original nonprofit in our country for food allergies. That has merged with another nonprofit, and now they're known as FARE, which Joy referred to, and that stands for Food Allergy Research and Education. For you restaurateurs on the call, and all of you in food service, you might want to go to foodallergy.org. That is the home page for FARE, and at that home page, you will find a number of tools that are helpful for you that are free for the downloading. So FARE is a wonderful resource, and we certainly appreciate them and all that they do. So why did this happen? Well, for those that follow the Food Network and food cooking shows, you'll recognize Chef Ming Tsai, quite a wonderful gentleman. He simply, many years ago, went in and ordered a sandwich for his then 3-year-old son, David, because the toddler was allergic to 7 of the 8 that were just listed for you. The manager's response to Chef was simply, "We'd rather not serve him." Well, between that and the eye roll, I think it was pretty frustrating for Chef, and on that day he decided to make it his mission to promote food allergy awareness. So what can one simple food allergy father do? Well, you see the outcome of that, 4 different pieces of legislation. And as I said in the beginning, in Massachusetts it's 4 pieces. We're only seeing 3. The 4th piece of the mandate in Massachusetts is to call something allergy aware. Call a facility allergy aware or a kitchen allergy aware. But they have not been able to determine what that means, what allergy aware really looks like, and what is a certified allergy kitchen. So until the debate settles, nobody is being forced to comply with that 4th section. So let's move right along onto Minnesota. In 2010, Minnesota had a mandate to do posters. Interestingly enough, it was only in the city of St. Paul, and the poster can be found at the URL you see there, www.stpaul.gov, and Google in there for a food allergy poster. It'll pop up for you, and the poster will look like what you see on the screen there in the bottom left. It is not mandated in places other than St. Paul. However, if you put the poster up in St. Paul and you do some kind of food allergy training in St. Paul, you get a 7% discount on licensing fees for having done the training. So they're trying to incentivize restaurants to do training. Let's go to New York. In New York, we have a couple of different mandates, so I will work on keeping it kind of simple and clear. New York City and Westchester County back in 2011 mandated posters, and those posters can be found at the URL you see listed on your screen. Now, the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene is who mandated the posters, and they just recently, in 2018, earlier this year, mandated statewide posters. So if you have facilities in New York State anywhere now, you need a poster up. up on the wall, and they generally want them in the break room or somewhere, by the line where you have posters and hand washing posters. That's where your food allergy poster should be listed. And here you can see a sample from their website of what the poster looks like. Moving right along up into Rhode Island. So Rhode Island came through and passed a mandate pretty early on, 2012. And Rhode Island did very much what Massachusetts did. They turned around and said, Massachusetts has had it for a couple more years than us. Let's just copy what they're doing and make it simple in our state. However, they did pick a different poster. This poster can be found on the Rhode Island Restaurant Association website. They require that same 22-minute video that was originally published by that nonprofit fan. And then the disclaimer language, like I showed you, please alert your server if someone in your party has a food allergy. And then this poster displayed in the break room or in the kitchen. And a lot of times people ask me, where are these laws coming from? So the title of this slide I put, so Danielle did something. So in Rhode Island, Danielle is an 18-year-old girl whose sister has food allergies. And she just got really tired of people not accommodating her sister Lauren, who is pictured on the right, to make her feel comfortable eating out. So she went for it in Rhode Island, marched up to their Capitol Hill on the state level, and asked that they mimic and mirror what was being done in Massachusetts. So I always say never underestimate the power of a loving family member who's got a mission in their heart, and that clearly is the case with this young lady. So we'll jump on over to Michigan, and up till this point, pretty much everything's been in the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic to Northeast, well actually just straight Northeast, New York and above. Now we're starting to come a little bit across the country with Michigan. Michigan does require posters and disclaimers. Michigan started to be the first area of our country that said, hey, wait, we want managers trained. Not only do we want managers trained, we're going to approve the training and make sure it meets our criteria. And I'll get into what that exceptions and special list means in just one moment. So in the state of Michigan, they required that food allergy training be Ansi accredited and meet their mandates. And simply put, they had a whole list of things they wanted to make sure it was covered, and they wanted to make sure that the pieces of paper, the certification printed out, and the class printed out for the students was worth more than just the paper it was printed on. And that's what Ansi is about. Ansi stands for American National Standards Institute, and it is a third party which certifies and guarantees and accredits training and other mandates, in this case training. And as you can see, here is the poster for Michigan. Now that little third bullet up there that I bolded, exceptions and special list, in the state of Michigan, there was one little loophole in the allergy training mandate, and that was that they allowed the state to accept out large corporations that had their own internal training or felt that they could get the training elsewhere. So there is a list on the website where you can see some of the brands that did get accepted out at that time. My last count, I think there were about 37 or 38 different brands, just FYI. Okay, so now let's stay on the East Coast, just go a little further south than New York and hit Virginia. Virginia mandates training standards that address food allergy awareness. And it's a little sketchy in Virginia in that they don't specifically name a training program. They do recognize and recommend ANSI accredited training, and you will see on their website, if you go there, they refer to a couple of programs. Virginia has gone through a big change in the last couple of years, updating their food code statewide, and that has sort of slowed the push of which mandated training they're going to do. And as I said, right now they're just recommending ANSI accredited training. Okay, so now we're going to Maryland, which is my wonderful state that I love. Maryland, back in 2010, tried to pass all of this different training. They actually, back in 2010, tried to do poster, disclaimer, training, and even menu IDing, which I'll get to in a second because it's really wild what's happening with menu labeling around food allergies. But back in 2010, and when they tried to have a 4-tiered approach to food allergies, the only one that made it through the legislation in Annapolis, Maryland, was a statewide poster. And you can see the poster here. It was put out by the Maryland Restaurant Association and available on their website, or this poster is actually also available on FAIR's website, which is foodallergy.org. So here we go. Maryland has had some pretty exciting stuff happening with food allergies in 2017. Montgomery County, Maryland, simply had an 11-year-old boy that goes on vacation in Massachusetts, and as a direct result of that, the county council passed a bill requiring restaurants to have employees trained, and legislation garnered support for those who suffer from severe allergies. I can tell you that that 11-year-old boy happened to live in the same neighborhood as a councilman, pretty much kidding corner to the councilman, and he simply told his neighbor what he experienced in Maryland. That same 11-year-old boy looked at his mom and said, "Mom, how come I can eat every place here in Massachusetts, but we don't have this in Maryland?" And again, the love of a family member trying to do the right thing for their person, whoever their person might be, takes it and starts marching up a Capitol Hill, and out comes training mandate. So as of January 1st, 2018, Ansi accredited training was mandated in the entire county of Maryland, and I can tell you that was almost 3,000 different restaurants and food establishments, from grocery stores, convenience stores, churches, daycares, senior living, public schools, everybody. They simply pulled a list of everybody that had a food license, a license to serve food to the public in the county, and that's who got mandated. So we only have a couple more states, and then I'll get into some great tips and ideas as to how to take care of yourself as a restaurant owner or a chef or a person in the front or back of house there, but I want to make sure to touch all of these states. Let's look quickly here at Illinois. It's interesting. As I said, we're starting to go across the country more and more, and out of pretty much nowhere, a mandate happened in the state of Illinois that said all restaurant managers at all times need to have state-required ANSI food service training. Now, it came out in 2017. When it was introduced on the state legislation, it happened really quick, and then it passed almost as quickly. And it was to be mandated as of January 1st, 2018. And there has been definitely some pushback from the communities across the state of Illinois. And legally, technically, and I'm not a lawyer, and I do not want you to take legal advice from me. However, I will tell you that I have been told multiple times that this was pushed back till 2019. And I've also had people on the phone saying, "Can you get me through allergy training?" My food safety inspector came, my county health inspector came, and he says, "I have 3 hours or an hour and 10 minutes to get it completed." There's a question. So if you have locations in the state of Illinois, it is worth checking out what your county is saying as to whether it was mandated in 2018 or 2019. Now let's go to New Jersey. New Jersey gets really interesting because they did put posters into effect as of January of this year. However, the state of New Jersey and one township within New Jersey has made the biggest, widest reaching food allergy legislation anywhere in the country. And if it sounds like I'm making a big deal, it's because I am. It's kind of amazing. It's just kind of amazing what's happening. Up until very, very recently, all that was mandated was posters, either the FAIR poster or our poster. Menu Trimpo is who owns AllerTrain, and our poster with FAIR also is a suitable poster in the state of New Jersey. but just recently, at the end of August, voted into legislation in the township of Edison, New Jersey. They are mandating through the ordinance you see there that any of the big 8 allergens and 2 other items be noted on a menu and disclosed on a menu. So the big 8, all sulfites and MSG. And from what I've read with the legislation, I cannot tell added or not added MSG, which is a different challenge because MSG is naturally occurring in some foods and it's added as a flavor enhancer in others. So in the state of New Jersey, they're going to want this from you if you have a location in Edison, New Jersey Township at this time. And they're going to want the big 8 allergens, sulfites, and MSG duly noted. So I'm going to pause for half a second and just remind you folks you're most welcome, and we've got a couple questions in, but you're most welcome to add your questions in the Q&A, and we will address them at the end of our webinar today. So these allergen menus are being used across the country at all different places to help consumers know what they can and can't eat. In New Jersey, they're saying this is mandated. If you're going to have a menu, you have to tell folks if any of these items are inside the food. Also interesting in the state of New Jersey, in Edison Township, they're not mandating training yet in that area. They just want the information provided. If I had my crystal ball, I'd tell you training's probably on the horizon very, very, very soon. And then the final state that has mandates as of today, September 2018, is Connecticut. Connecticut has passed a mandate that says at least one certified manager on duty has to have taken allergen awareness training program approved by the Commissioner of Public Health. And this is going to start in January of 2019. And we are looking at the Ansi accredited programs to be mandated in the state. So let's go ahead and look a little bit. I referred to my crystal ball before, and because I get to go ahead and stay on the cutting edge of this kind of legislation, a lot of times people will say to me, what's coming next? So what state is next? We have a whole lot in the Northeast. We're starting to work our way across the country slowly but surely. And as you can see, there are 4 different states here that are bolded out in blue. And they're bolded out in blue because they have either introduced legislation or there's pending legislation or there's something that's been proposed in their areas. California has bounced back and forth twice about mandating training or not. They have not instituted anything officially. There's no poster mandate, there's no training mandate, but it is definitely a part of the country that I expect to see it within the next 12 to 18 months. Texas, I think Texas is probably going to be another 24 months before we see it. It was introduced and then absolutely kicked out of legislation and conversation. And so now we're waiting to see if it gets reintroduced. I will tell you we have a lot of food allergy moms and dads down there that have reached out to me, and they mean business. So we will see what happens there. And then Pennsylvania's had a number of young folks die as a result of anaphylactic reaction. And usually when someone passes away from a food allergy, things get kind of serious kind of fast. And so that is why Pennsylvania is in blue. There has been legislation introduced. It has not been shut down, and it has not been passed. It's sort of pending. And then the last state I bolded there was Tennessee, and I just would like to show you a little picture of Molly. Molly is a Girl Scout. She's a junior in high school, and this was her project. Her project was to basically lobby, although as a junior in high school, I'm not sure she specifically meant to lobby, but that's what she did. Part of her Girl Scout Gold Award project was to go and meet with officials at the Department of Health in the state of Tennessee and let them know why she wanted to add 12 simple words to the food code. Anybody that's worked within the food code understands there's nothing about simple words in the food code, but she's trying. And I can promise you she is still trying, Even though she's no longer a junior, she just started her senior year. Now, when we look at epinephrine across our country, we have to look at epinephrine in two spaces. So when Joy was talking about emergency protocol, basically, if somebody has a reaction, in our country, we're saying, get epinephrine, dial 911. Like, that's the protocol that FAIR is leaning to and encouraging people to do, because epinephrine is the medication that can stop an allergic reaction and hopefully reverse the challenges for a student or a person that's having an allergic reaction. This is school access to emergency epinephrine versus non-school, general public access. And I always tell folks to think about what we call generic epi is the nickname we call it, meaning generic epinephrine. Nobody's name is assigned to that medication. Anybody can use it if they need it. It's sort of like an AED on the wall. It's there in absolute worst case scenario to grab in an emergency. So schools started to put into effect generic epinephrine as a result of a bill that was signed in 2013 by President Barack Obama at that time. He signed it in under the name of a 7-year-old girl that passed away from eating a cookie. But when he did sign it in, he did let the world know that his daughter has a peanut allergy. It's a very, very common allergy for kids. So straight across the country, generic epi was allowed in schools. Non-school access to emergency medication is starting to happen more and more and more across the states. The darker red are states that allow that, which means if you have a restaurant in those states or a child care center or a concession stand or any kind of location that serves food, you could even have an amusement park and just simply want to stock generic epinephrine to help folks who have an allergic reaction. Sometimes they have the reaction without even knowing they were allergic before they put the food in their mouth. So food allergies, unfortunately, folks might have a reaction and not even know they're allergic to something. So at this time, I'm going to go into the impact it has on the food service industry as a whole. And we are definitely seeing case study and new legislation coming and settlements in court and discussion around what this impact is having. So the Leslie University case was the first nationally recognized case. And I say nationally recognized because it went, from CNN to Fox News to, the newspapers. USA Today did a story on it when it finally settled. And that was about students at Leslie University not being able to get the food they needed through their food plan because of their special dietary needs. It did finally settle, and that is how we ended up with food allergy being called an American Disability, hits the ADA, American Disabilities Act. Amtrak was sued by a family because they at that time had listed on their website that if you were a minor with a food allergy, you were not allowed to travel by yourself. And as most people know, that's, you can't tell somebody they can't travel because they have a disability. It's not cool, it's not okay. And they ended up settling that case, and that language is no longer on their website, and it's no longer their policy. Also, there is a restaurant in Colonial Williamsburg that took in a whole bunch of students from a local high school. One of the students, or middle school, I'm sorry, one of the students brought their own food because they could not safely eat the food that was available in that restaurant. Those on this call, I know, understand there's plenty of rules and laws about what food can come into a commercial kitchen, and food from home is generally not allowed in a commercial kitchen, and as a result, that restaurant told the family they couldn't feed the child what they brought for the child, and the child would have to leave. So the child sat on the front steps while all of his classmates were sitting around tables inside, and there is a lawsuit pending on that. The last two, without naming names in any way, shape, or form, are pending cases. We have a grocery store that's working through a lawsuit, as well as a diner up in Wisconsin, and there's a couple, 3 or 4 other locations that are having it, challenges that are being brought against them regarding food allergies. 2 super important things I want to leave you with on this. One is, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving legal advice. Talk to your lawyer about your stance on this. This is a huge issue. It's not going anywhere. It's getting bigger all the time. The second thing I want to bring up is that these incidences that you see on the screen could be anybody. They could be anybody that puts peanut butter on something when it doesn't come with peanut butter normally because they misread the ticket. Or it could be anybody that says, no, there's no dairy in that, when in fact it's loaded with dairy. And the results can be deadly. So what you see there on the left is a young boy named Oakley. He has passed away at 11 from a food allergy. And then you see that sweet young man up there from Harlem in a daycare in New York City, in Harlem, excuse me. His daycare center has now trained over 3,000 people through FAIR. They have stepped up and gotten training. Unfortunately, the loss of his life, and out of great tragedy, is how we get education and awareness sometimes. So a great question I get asked regularly is, when are you as a restaurateur on notice? When do you know? When are you responsible? And I have heard multiple times that once a person informs you or anybody that works for you that they have a food allergy, is the moment officially you are on notice. At that moment, you are now responsible for serving them safely or letting them know if you cannot. And then if you tell them you can't, you better be ready for the fallout from that. There are great products out there, and I love being teamed up with Unilever because they have some great solutions for sure in this area. So providing people with great, safe food is manageable today, and even easier as products keep coming on the market. So I think the last section that we're in today, and to wrap up the education side of this, and then we'll take some of these great questions, is tools for you and your team. Often I get asked, what's the best thing we should do? What should we do number one? Hey, we have 24 locations, we have 1,024 locations, or we have 1 location. What should we do? So here are the best practices that I teach all the time. Number 1, go for training. I, of course, want you to take AllerTrain. That's my jam. That's my company. I love it. But there are other trainings out there. If you don't go with AllerTrain, no worries, but go with an Ansi accredited training. Go with something that's been vetted out so that you feel as proud as Chef does on the right side of that screen. She framed her certificate and puts it up to show everybody she went through the extra steps. And as you can see, she's from Sodexo. So just put it out there, or put them up on the wall right next to your food safety certificates. But I believe, and what I have found in this space, in this industry, is that one size does not fit all on training. So just simply putting yourself or your employees in front of a computer to sit and watch 22 minutes and then click a box, or to spend 2 hours, I just don't see that as being the best way to get trained. And if you're going to go through training, making sure you or your folks, or those that hold the keys to your front door in their hands, make sure they get the best training they can, whether it's through a master trainer, which is a Train the Trainer program for food allergies, or if it is online, if it's online on a computer or a tablet or a cell phone. Be mindful of due diligence within your organization and look for a complete solution. Are you doing a monthly poster program to follow up so that you're training for 5 minutes a month and having people sign off so that you can have due diligence if, God forbid, something happens at your place? My second area I talk to about tips, and these are the 5 top tip areas for us, is policy. So when it comes to a policy, does your food service location have a plan of action, a process for implementing that plan? Do you have disclaimer on your menu? And then if you don't have a policy today, that is a policy. So you should have a plan when somebody announces they have a food allergy, know exactly what you're going to do with that person, how you're going to help them pick what they can eat, what they can't eat, who's going to prepare it, what it's going to look like, all of that. That's the whole process thought out. The disclaimer is absolutely to let folks know we have all big 8 allergens in our location at all times. We are a scratch-cook kitchen. At any point, we may have cross-contamination, cross-contact. Another thing, if you don't have peanuts in your location, add that to your menus. We do not have peanuts on our property at any time. Sharing the real information with folks is greatly appreciated, and I will promise you, as I'll show you towards the end, I've got a couple more slides, and I'll show you, food allergy diners are faithful and loyal like you cannot believe. They will keep coming back to your location every time if they know you're going to treat them safe. So when we look at the front of the house, these are the 5 areas when it comes to food allergy you want to be mindful of. Are you being hospitable? Or are you rolling your eyes at Chef like what happened with Chef Ming Tsai, you know, when he wanted something special for his 3-year-old? Rolling the eyes will get you a loss of a client and a loss of a diner and could be a whole lot more than that. A lot of times we call it a brand-destroying visit from a client, and just whether we're hospitable or not could be all the difference in the world. When a diner comes in and says they have a food allergy, how are they communicating that to you, and how are you communicating that to the front and back of house? So the front of house needs to communicate to the back. What's your signage? Food bars, I always say food bars are like almost like playing Russian roulette because you're mixing up spoons and you're mixing up tongs. So be super mindful of food bars. There's a way to get those set up. And then finally, cleaning all surfaces properly. Everything needs to be washed, rinsed, and then sanitized. Simple sanitizer is not enough. When it comes to the back of the house, these are the 7 areas that we like to be mindful of. Always having recipes, and I'll get a little bit more into that on the next slide, but checking labels, knowing what the big 8 allergens are called, what their alternate names are, because sometimes it doesn't say milk. Sometimes it says whey, and so you need to know whey is another word for milk, things like that. Hand washing. We're always teaching each other how to wash our hands. You know, no matter how old we are, we're talking about washing our hands. Well, it's certainly important when it comes to food allergies. Cross-contact is the term we use here in this side of the world, in the allergen side of the world, where one item touches another. Think raw chicken and fresh produce. That's the best and easiest way for folks to understand that we cannot cross-contact a non-allergen and an allergen together. Cleaning and washing smallwares is vital. Barriers when cooking, by that I mean foil, I mean covering a pot, I mean taking a flat top grill and cooking something in a saute pan on top of the flat top grill, so you have an extra barrier for cross-contact to occur. And then how do you deliver the food allergy meal to the diner? Is it in a to-go container? Is it on a separate tray? How do they receive it? And some of this is things we teach in AllerTrain, but I wanted to give you just some good high-level tips to take away with you today. When I talk about products matter, pick the right products, make sure the products are free of the big 8, and always ID when any of the big 8 are present. And the most important tip on this slide for sure is number 3. 86 substitutions if you're not sure of the specs. 86, as those of you that know, means get rid of it off the menu for the day until you can verify the ingredients, that it's a comfortable and satisfactory substitution when it comes to food allergens. And folks, you've been great at listening. This is my final slide, and then I'll toss it back over to Joy. But this is where consumers go to pick restaurants. So I told you earlier, food allergy families and folks are so loyal, and they love it when they can find a restaurant that's going to take care of them, no matter what their allergens are. And if you look at the list, one of the things that I always found the most amazing, but it comes up year after year, is that chains like legal seafood can get such a great high rating from those with food allergies. And people, over and over, since they don't have the double stars, they're not new to the list. They come year after year on this list. So it doesn't matter that they have shellfish and finfish. They still are top shelf when it comes to legal seafood. And that is some of the information that we do as a company when we consult. At the end of this, in a couple more slides, Joy's going to share with you about who gets the consulting package from us as a thank you for joining us on the webinar today and sitting with restaurateurs and helping them figure out how to drive this line of business is really a pleasure and a privilege for us. So now I'm going to go ahead and throw it back to you, Joy.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Betsy. It was really, really comprehensive and great information. I wanted to remind our audience here today that you will be getting a free sample of 2 products as shown here that can help you tackle some of the challenges that we talked about today. Our Knorr Hollandaise sauce mix is free from artificial flavors and preservatives and made with colors from natural sources. It's also gluten-free and vegetarian. This product delivers a creamy and consistent sauce with authentic buttery flavor. It holds well under heat with quick and simple prep, and there's no added MSG and less butter and no milk required. The second sample you'll be receiving is our Knorr low-sodium brown gravy, which is really delicious. That delivers superior quality, balanced flavor, and performance you can rely on. This product is now gluten-free, dairy-free, and vegan with no MSG. So look for those. With regards to recipes and trends, if you're looking for ways to use these products and some inspiration on more nutritional trends in the industry, we recommend you check out uss.com and also, of course, like us on social media and read our newsletters as well. We realize between trying to keep up with all these changing regulations that Betsy just covered and staying on top of what guests want and expect on menus that can be a challenge. So we hope that the information you find on our website can help you deliver on all of this. And finally, our winner of the consultation will actually be contacted directly. So with this, we'd like to thank everyone for registering and hope that you found the content very helpful. And once again, if you'd like to ask any questions, please submit your questions now. With that, I'll turn it over to Betsy.
Thanks, Joy. And we have some really great questions that came up. So, Joy, don't go on mute yet because I've got one right here for you if you're ready.
Yep.
What do your chefs at Unilever recommend for allergen-free recipes? And I think, is it one that's, more often requested? Is it center of plate? What are you seeing, Joy?
Sure. So a couple of things, of course, but let me just highlight the biggest one that I mentioned earlier. So for peanut allergies, our UFS chefs suggest chicken curry with cashews. Now make sure your guest isn't allergic to cashews as well, because obviously that's in the dish. But simply swapping peanuts for cashews makes a delicious alternative. And when preparing this dish, instruct your back-of-house staff to be super cautious to not use utensils that may have touched peanuts, as you mentioned, like cross-contamination. So this is just one idea, but I will tell you we have a lot of great content on our website. So if you're looking for more ideas and tips like this that address other allergens, we encourage you to check out uss.com.
That's great, Joy. And you're right. Cashews can sub in for peanuts, and chicken at the center of a plate is a wonderful option for allergen-free diners. It's a great, great start. And with that Knorr, I just learned some stuff from you today on the Knorr, and I love it. I'm so excited. And you folks will get to use it and try it out as a result of joining us today. So a question for me came up. It says some of my food products they may contain on the ingredient list. Are those real allergen warnings? Boy, I'll tell you what, that may contain statement is the biggest challenge we have in this space. We have a couple blogs on our AllerTrain website about this. May contain is an optional statement. that the manufacturers put on because they're using their own disclaimer. They want to cover themselves. So if it says may contain, it may contain it in a line, I don't know, four lines away, 4 manufacturing lines away, and it might never actually cross contact over. So I recommend that you look at each individual ingredient, and if you're trying to make products that are truly, truly free from, you pay very close attention to the may contain statement and see what the product is that's manufactured and what they're saying it may contain. Because telling me a chocolate bar may contain shellfish, I know what you're doing as a manufacturer. You're completely covering yourself. Versus telling me that chocolate manufacturer may contain some kind of nut, whole different ballgame. The next one is, why is the AllerTrain logo on some slides and not others? We found in some of those areas, and if you saw the AllerTrain logo there, it's because training was mandated and Ansi accredited training was the answer. And Ansi accredited training was mandated in a bunch of the states, but not all of the states. And AllerTrain is an Ansi accredited training. And here I'm going to answer a second question. And our AllerTrain does expire. It's got a 5-year certificate life to it. Joy, we have another question for you. How did Knorr reformulate their products to be more allergen friendly? Like, do you know what they took out, or?
Yeah, so our Unilever Food Solutions team, which obviously also incorporates dietitians and chefs, they focused on cleaning our products by removing artificial flavor, using colors from natural sources, and removing artificial preservatives. We also worked to make the products gluten-free and remove dairy where it was not inherent to the product. So we really worked hard on reformulating many of the products that we have currently.
Awesome, Joy. Thank you. I have a couple more questions here, and then if anybody has any more, this is the last call for questions. We'll be ending in just a few moments at the top of the hour, but I thank you for the questions that have come our way. What are the penalties if I don't comply with my state's food allergen laws? Well, each state's different. The gentleman I spoke with on the phone was in the state of Illinois, and he had an hour and a half to take training, or it was $250 from his health inspector. So it just kind of depends about what county, what area. I know all the health inspectors in Montgomery County, Maryland, if you don't have an allergy certificate on the wall, then you get dinged on your health report and you have a period of time to correct it. There's no fine the first time. There definitely is the second. So it kind of depends upon your zip code and what your state or county mandates. What is the best way to identify allergens on my menu? Well, I'll tell you what, Edison, New Jersey is going to teach us a lot, I think, folks. It's ironic because in Europe, they have the top 14 allergens, and it has been mandated that those be on all menus for years, for like 3+ years. And when that went into effect, I remember making the statement that within 5 years, it'll be here in the U.S. And in 3 years, it's in Edison, New Jersey. So I don't know where we're going to end up with these menus between the calories, which we love doing as a company, and then sodium in certain areas, and now we're going to do the big 8 allergens, sulfites, and MSG. I mean, it's going to be kind of wild to see. So stay tuned and watch for more webinars on some of that. I have 2 more questions, I believe. And I've heard there's a shortage on EpiPens. Have I heard anything about that? Yes, epinephrine is definitely shortened right now. People are trying to refill their prescriptions, and it's a huge challenge. The FDA is actually stepping in to try to push other products through quicker to help that. And as many of you know, there were challenges with Mylan, which made the EpiPen, and that is a trademark name for the pricing it was doing and things through the years. So So it's kind of interesting to watch what's happening in that space. But epinephrine is definitely needed if there's a food allergic reaction. So I have a final question here, and it sort of looks like a two-part question. And, okay, I see. You guys are doing great, so keep the questions coming. We do have 2 more minutes, so I'll get to them. Why have you not mentioned latex? Latex, so 1 out of every 10 human beings is allergic to latex. Latex is an allergy in other parts of the country. So we have 22 different countries that label up to 23 different allergens. Here in the U.S., labeling latex is not mandated because it's not one of the big 8 allergens. Also, even though latex is used in gloves and people touch it and that's how people ingest, so a food service worker, God forbid, years ago we all used latex gloves. You touch the food with a latex glove, the particles cross contact over to the person's mouth. That's how they get sick. Most people do not use latex gloves anymore, and most folks with latex allergies are aware of them. It's more of a direct result becomes an environmental allergy, which is why you can't bring latex balloons into a hospital, because then it's up in the air in particles versus the food. But that's a great question. In Connecticut, it's a $250 fine for each employee seen with them on. That's brilliant. That's brilliant because, and thank you for the information. I'm reading off of one of our guest comments, and I wouldn't find that terribly surprising because 1 in 10 folks are allergic to latex, so that it's certainly a challenge. Does that require labeling? No, for that reason. And then the final thing, oh, wow, interesting. Other states, it's more expensive for latex. We're talking, the last question has to do with mayo containing soybean oil, but it doesn't list soy as an allergen. Why is that? One of the things, this is a huge controversial, so we'll end on a good controversy. There are folks out there in soybean oil and peanut oil and multitude of oils that they call those oils partially hydrogenated oils. So they're denaturing the proteins. And there are entire groups of people that believe if you denature the protein, the person allergic to it will not have a reaction because the protein is gone. There's also a school of thought that thinks if you're allergic to the protein chicken, you can cook it for 3 hours. It's still going to taste like chicken, and that protein's still there. So I'm not going to step in the middle of that other than to say seek your own solution from your own legal team and make your best choice for yourself and your guests once you've gotten that one-on-one consultative help. So with that, I want to thank Unilever for allowing AllerTrain and myself to be a part of this great webinar. And Joy, would you like to say ciao to everybody before we end our webinar?
Yes, thank you again for everyone that's joined, and we appreciate it. And this webinar has been recorded, so it will live on. So thank you, everyone, and have a great day. This will conclude the webinar.